Welcome in to the Punt and Pass podcast. I'm your host, Drew Butler, joined alongside my co-host, Jake Fromm. Be sure to follow us on social media. We are at Punt and Pass on X and Instagram. I am at Drew Butler. He's at Fromm Jake. PuntandPass.com, the number one destination for all things college football. It is officially Thanksgiving week. We're taping this on a Monday evening. And what a weekend it was in college football. When I say chaotic, Jake Fromm, it was simply crazy. As we always touch on, those Detroit Lions, 10-1. I mean, holy cow. Rocking and rolling in the NFL, took care of business at Indianapolis, beating up on the Colts. And as is tradition, Lions playing football on Thanksgiving around noon. What's up, brother? How are you?
Yeah, man. What's going on? Thanksgiving week, a lot to be thankful for. We keep winning. Lions keep winning. This is great. And thankful for a great and chaotic weekend of college football. And I think it's going to be even more chaotic coming into the final weekend of college football. It's going to be a great season. Can't wait to dive in and talk about it, man.
I cannot believe it is already the final season of the final weekend of the regular season.
You did it
college
too.
football. I just said it too because you made me say it. You keep mentioning chaos. We don't need chaos around the holiday season, and the way you avoid chaos in your relationship is you go to Solomon Brothers Jewelers. You know that by now. This episode of Punt and Pass presented to you by Solomon Brothers Jewelers. In order to make your holiday season, engagement season, gift shopping season not chaotic, head on over to Solomon Brothers. They got 3 awesome locations for you to choose from. Of course, there's one in Buckhead, 17th floor, Tower Place. There's one up in the North Metro in Alpharetta, just past the Avalon, and of course, the newest location down south of the city in Sharpsburg. Hopefully, you enjoyed the Takori Bridal event this past weekend. They had some amazing deals going on, but if you weren't able to catch on to that, head on into one of Solomon Brothers' locations. Mention that Punt and Pass sent you, and when you purchase jewelry in store, you can get up to 20% off. Now's the time to do it, folks. It's Thanksgiving on Thursday. Then it's full go in the Christmas season. If you're going to make an engagement, if you're going to propose to somebody, if you need to get a great jewelry or diamond gift, head on over to Solomon Brothers. Tell them Punt and Pass sent you. Again, 20% off your in-store jewelry purchase. Check them out online, SolomonBrothers.com, at Solomon Brothers on X and Instagram. All right, man. It was simply a crazy, crazy weekend. And Jake, before we dive into what happened this weekend in Georgia, finding themselves with an SEC championship berth at the end of Saturday's chaos, you and I discussed last week how, and I think there was just a general sentiment among the Georgia fan base after losing to Ole Miss and then after beating Tennessee, that if Georgia took care of business against UMass and then Georgia Tech, which will not be an easy game, they were going to be in the college football playoff. And whether they found themselves hosting a first-round game inside Sanford Stadium or going on the road and possibly playing a team that they match up very well against, to me, it felt like Georgia fans had come to grips with, okay, not going to go to the SEC championship. We will play in the playoffs, home or away. We'll let those chips fall where they may. But the opportunity to sit out the SEC championship game, get healthy, have pretty much a 3-week bye, and get some key players back, that seemed like, that's pretty good. With the schedule that the Dogs had this season, we'll go into the playoff and go in and try to win a national championship. However, Saturday ended up happening. Ole Miss loses to Florida. Auburn loses to Texas A&M. Sorry, Texas A&M loses to Auburn. I'm all over the place. And then, of course, Alabama gets simply run out by Oklahoma, and Georgia has clinched a spot in the SEC championship game. So I guess before we dive into those games, before we talk about Georgia heading into a huge game on Friday night and then the SEC championship game, talk about the feelings that Georgia fans had, because I had some people chirping me saying like, wow, I can't believe 2 DGDs are sitting here saying we'd rather not play in the SEC championship game. To me, it was just a matter of fact that this is how the chips have fallen and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I remember kind of going through all the scenarios with you, Drew, and, well, this person had to lose and this and this. There's just a lot of different scenarios that had to happen. A lot of chips had to fall. A lot of people had to lose. And I think me and you were both on the side like, hey, it's not very probable. And we were accepting that fact, and we were looking on the optimistic and bright side of saying, you know what, maybe this is a blessing in disguise to kind of get revamped, like you said, get healthy, start getting ahead with the possibility of even hosting a home playoff game, which would have been awesome. I mean, the stadium would have been rocking, would have been unreal. That's probably not the case now, being able to host, because you want to win the SEC championship, and I think they will go and take care of business. But I mean, just a completely different scenario of what everyone thought. I think if you would have had an X poll, an Elon Musk X poll going on last week, and said, hey, what would you like to happen? What would you like to see? I think we would have seen, a very high statistic of saying, you know what, hey, we'll skip the SEC championship. We'll get healthy. We'll get ready. And we would love the opportunity to possibly host a college football playoff game.
I totally agree. That was my feeling as well. And I think if you ask anybody around the Georgia football program, it's kind of like, hey, after the gauntlet that we've run, we're fine with not playing in the SEC championship. It's not that they don't want to win the SEC championship. You could make the argument it's harder to win the SEC championship than it is a national championship. I mean, Alabama won 2 national championships without even playing in the SEC championship game. If you go back, and I'll ask you this question, Jake, because you're a person that could answer it. You need to give me your honest answer quickly, and then I'll continue making my point. Let's go back to 2017. Would you trade an SEC championship for a national championship? That is a tough question.
I think I would. As much as the SEC championship means to me and a ton of people, I think I'm trading it, and hopefully Tua throws that ball incomplete, or call different coverage, and maybe life turns out a little different.
Simmons is on sides, obviously.
Dude, there's so many things we can go down.
Of course,
in this game, and we could even go on to talk about later in the pod about this SEC officiating crew.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, let's get back.
Thank you for answering that question.
You take the lead here, Coach.
Here is the point, I think, which is even more prevalent now. Okay, so Georgia, obviously, I think if they win one of the next 2 games, Georgia Tech or the SEC championship, of course, they're going to the college football playoff. How that looks could be drastically different. And that's where the rub is for all the Georgia fans or football fans who are saying, like, well, why wouldn't you want to play in your conference championship game? Let's not even bring up a year ago. Yes, it was a 14 playoff. Georgia was on a historic run and streak in college football history. They lose to Alabama by 3 points on a neutral site. They were the number 1 team in the nation. They got crumpled up like a piece of trash. You did not get invited to the college football playoff. After the gauntlet that Georgia has already run this year, Clemson on a neutral field. At Kentucky, I'll put that in there because it was a tough game. At Alabama, that's a loss. At number 1 ranked Texas, that's a win. At Ole Miss, that's a loss. Home versus a top 10 ranked Tennessee team, that's a win. Now you got to play your in-state rival who's playing good football. They just knocked off a top 5 Miami team, Georgia Tech, in which Georgia Tech's Super Bowl is Friday night. Do not get it twisted. It's their last game. I mean, they're going to go to whatever bowl game it is. It's not the college football playoff. They are burning the ships on this game Friday night. However, Georgia, now that they have clinched the SEC championship, they're looking at 2 more months of football. Friday is November 29th, Jake. The national championship is January 20th. That is planning. That is roster management. That is getting healthy. That is sitting there saying, okay, we've got to turn around, and in 8 days, we're going to be back in Atlanta playing either Texas, who we already beat, who's a top 5 team in the country, or Texas A&M, who's got a good defense, who's got a mobile quarterback. Like, they would want to win the SEC championship because then they would get into the college football playoff. Simply saying this, now playing in the SEC championship game, you have put yourself in a situation to where you could play 5 more football games at this point in the season. It's just crazy to think, and fans can get mad at me for still saying this, the conference championship game now could penalize you more than it could be advantageous to play in. I truly do believe in that.
Yeah, we've seen it happen before, and the committee's saying that they're not going to punish you for playing in your conference championship game. Again, I'll believe it when I see it. You're still going to. I just, in my mind, when you're saying this, talking about 2 more months of football, I'm like, welcome to the NFL, man. Like when you get to Thanksgiving, you're like, man, I still got a ways to go here.
Long way to go
in this season. Like we're on the home stretch, but we still got some games. We still got some weekends. It's just a long season. So are their bodies prepared for it? I don't know. The extra break could be very advantageous. Just a little mental reset and a physical reset. And man, if you lose that SEC championship game, you don't know what's going to happen. And the ball is just not in your hands anymore.
It's not in your hands anymore, especially with 3 losses. I think that's also another thing where you could sit there and be like, okay, you lost the conference championship. You didn't win it. Say Texas or Texas A&M does beat Georgia. There will be a massive amount of public pressure saying, how could you let a 3-loss team who didn't even win their conference championship into the playoff, even if it is 12 teams? I'm looking at Brett McMurphy's predictions right now. Brett McMurphy of the Action Network, he does a pretty good job with his bowl predictions. And right now, in the first round, he has Texas not playing in it. So I'm guessing he's just predicting that Georgia wins the SEC championship against Texas. Texas were to still get in because, yes, they only do have 1 loss. Tennessee gets in. They play on the road against Penn State. That'd be a fun game. Boise State on the road inside Ohio Stadium against Ohio State. SMU at Notre Dame. That's a snooze fest. And then Indiana at Texas. So that's his prediction at the moment. And, he's got Georgia then playing Texas again in the Sugar Bowl, which could just be crazy. I mean, it's broken. It's messed up. I don't really know where they go from here, Jake. I know I'm just kind of rambling, but it was so chaotic to where I don't really know what to say. It's just crazy that we're at this point. It will be great if it's Georgia, Texas. If it's Texas A&M, Georgia in the SEC championship game, the atmosphere is going to be sick. Obviously, those 2 teams have never played in the SEC championship, so that will be a very fun environment. But, man, who would have thought, if I would have told you last Monday, hey, Saturday night, Georgia's going to have a spot clinched in the SEC championship after all we played with on that cool website that does the SEC tiebreakers? I don't know if I could have found how they would have clinched by Saturday night. And I sent you that link on Saturday evening, and I said, this dude's servers were down. So many people were crashing that website.
That is, I mean, just crazy. I remember, we're traveling to Indianapolis, last week, and then, the Florida Ole Miss game's going on. You're like, what is happening in this game? And then you got the Auburn Texas A&M game, and then the Alabama Oklahoma game. And Alabama didn't even score a touchdown, Coach. I mean, they looked awful. They looked flat. There wasn't much going on. And I'm here. I'm looking at this list now. The top 25 lists. I don't know if you remember a couple weeks ago, and they talked about the percentage to make the college football playoff. And then there was South Carolina sitting at this weird, was it 17 or like a 30% number, where they could possibly make the college football playoff.
Yeah, it was like 16 or 17% when we talked about it. That's right.
Dude, they're playing some good football right now, and their quarterback, Lenore Sellers, is balling.
And they can get after the quarterback too. I mean, great pass rush, physical defense. Like, that's a team you don't want to play.
You do not want to play that team. That is a scary team that could possibly sneak in. They go and they handle business against Clemson.
They'll have a great argument to get into the college football playoff. There's no question about that.
So I don't know. There is a ton that could happen this week, and it's going to shake up. I'm excited to see what the committee has in store for us coming Tuesday night in these rankings. But it's going to be a lot to talk about then. But man, there was some crazy football being played this past week.
Okay, let's just do one more thought experiment here.
Talk to me.
And it's kind of it's a moot point because Georgia's going to the SEC championship. But again, going back to I think the general thought process of people being like, okay, we're just going to be in the first round. You more than likely, I think, depending on what happens this weekend, again, probably would have gotten a home game. You would have played possibly an SMU, possibly a Boise State, possibly in Indiana in Athens, right? And then you start hitting the gauntlet after a 2.5 to 3 week break. Right now, as Brett McMurphy has it, it looks like he thinks Texas is going to play Georgia in the SEC championship. Again, the winner of Texas A&M plays the SEC championship. Then Georgia would be the sitting duck, waiting in the Sugar Bowl with the bye week, self-scouting. He's got Texas playing Georgia again. So now you've played this top 5 team 3 times this season. Then he's got Georgia beating Texas, advancing to the Orange Bowl to play Miami, the top 10, top 5 team. Then he has them beating Miami, Georgia, and playing Oregon in the national championship. I mean, that is an unprecedented set of opponents that Georgia would have to overcome to win a national championship. I don't know if it's better if you were to play in the first round and then try to win one additional game, but it's crazy. These matchups are sick. Like, there's going to be a ton of opportunity to have some great college football games once conference championship weekend is over.
Yeah, I mean, just crazy. It's crazy. I'm so glad they did this. Probably after these TV ratings and they get some really good matchups and the matchups they want, I mean, they'll probably expand it here rather quickly.
Yeah.
Because you're like, man, this sells. People love it. Because these games continue to matter. Like South Carolina, Clemson coming this weekend. Like that game is going to matter.
Huge game.
I mean, this Georgia Tech game is going to matter
huge
a ton. Texas A&M, we talked about that one. So, I mean, there's just a lot of games that are going to continue to matter. And I would even say how Alabama finishes against Auburn matters. You know, like they could sneak around, say, you know, some team loses in a conference championship game. You know, we probably don't want to see it, but I mean, they would love the excuse to throw Alabama back in there and just see what they could do, right?
Are you kidding me? Yes, you know, they would bend over backwards to see which way they could get Alabama. And I thought it was fascinating. Nick Saban on game day, Saturday morning, he said, I don't know what to say except that Jordan-Hare is a haunted stadium and Texas A&M better be ready. And that's exactly what happened. And he knows that. And now Alabama's got to go to Jordan-Hare. If you don't think that Auburn smells blood in the water against Bama this weekend, you are crazy. That's going to be a big game. If you don't think Brent Key would sell his children on the black market to beat Georgia in between the hedges this Friday night to potentially have them on the outs of the championship or of the college football playoff, you don't know what you have coming. Like, these games matter so much, Jake. It's rivalry week. Throw all the records out the window. You're a Georgia guy. You know how much that game means. And you just have to imagine Tech is salivating. UMass ran for 226 yards against Georgia last weekend. Say what you want. Buster Faulkner had to be just chomping at the bit to say, let me get this game plan together.
Hey, so I got something for you right here. I want to ask you, Drew, a question about the biggest loser from this past week. You got Ole Miss, everything in front of them, and they just dropped the ball big time on the road against Florida. Alabama, Indiana, Colorado. Now, Colorado had a chance to kind of backdoor themselves into the college football playoff, or Texas A&M. Which team out of those 5 do you think are the biggest losers from this past weekend?
Probably. Did you say Alabama? I mean, Alabama's a huge loser. I mean, that was just such a disaster on their part. I think Indiana's still in. I think Colorado.
I'm so frustrated with the Ole Miss one. I don't know why. You know, when during my recruiting deal in high school, we went out to Ole Miss, and honestly, man, I loved it out there. It was great. Just thought it was beautiful. Fell in love with it a little bit. And so I've always been like an undercover
quasi
yeah,
Ole Miss
you know,
fan.
like, hey, you know, if it doesn't hurt Georgia, hey, I'll be an Ole Miss fan. But to see them just have such a devastating just loss and finale there against Florida, I mean, they're done. I mean, they just such a good football team. I think it was the first time in his career Jackson Dart has thrown multiple interceptions in a game. And they had
3, right? He threw 3.
Yeah, he threw 3, and they had multiple chances at the end of that football game to score and tie it back up, and they just couldn't make it happen. That's
Yeah,
bad.
for how dominant. I mean, they kicked
Yeah.
Georgia's ass. Like, they
Oh, yeah.
absolutely beat Georgia up and down the field, and they had a bye week, and then they just fell flat on their face. Obviously, going into the swamp was a tough task. I said it on Thursday's podcast. I said Florida's going to cover, they might win. I also said Auburn's going to cover, they might win. So a little pat on the back for me there. But Ole Miss was sitting pretty. Like, they had their ticket punched if they just beat Florida. And if they just took care of business against Mississippi State, which you would expect them to in the Egg Bowl. What did you say? You said Ole Miss, Oxford was beautiful. And what else? You said you liked it.
Oh, dude, it was great, man. It was awesome. Just
yeah. If you've got somebody beautiful great and cool in your life, you got to treat them right this holiday season. Head on over to Solomon Brothers Jewelers. This episode of Punt and Pass presented to you by Solomon Brothers. Just trying to tee you up there for a great little tease. All good though.
All good
though. You got to think on your feet. Think on your feet. Check them out on social media at Solomon Brothers on X and Instagram. 3 amazing locations for you to choose from: Buckhead, Alpharetta, and Sharpsburg. When you're in store, the in-store experience is simply unmatched. If you don't know what you want, walk in store, talk to an employee, tell them what you're thinking. I promise you, they will take care of you in the best way possible. Mention Punt and Pass sent you. You can get up to 20% off your jewelry purchase. Yeah, Indiana, 13.5-point underdog. I like them to keep it close. They had a just debacle of some special teams plays. That game got out of hand. They lose to Ohio State 38-15. Ohio State pretty much in the college football playoff. Oregon pretty much in the college football playoff. I think Indiana will still be there as well. Brett McMurphy does too. Looks like Tennessee is good to go. If they
the huge winner from this weekend was Tennessee. Having all these other teams lose because they were kind of on the fringe there. Is their resume good enough? Some untimely losses. When you lose late in college football, that recency bias, it hurts you. It really does. But man, they go take care of Vandy, which is a dangerous football team, but they take care of Vandy. I think they punched their ticket.
Yeah, it looks like Vandy might have run out of a little bit of steam. LSU took care of business against them this past weekend. But that's a huge rivalry game. I mean, again, Vanderbilt, those players at Vanderbilt would do anything to beat Tennessee and knock them out of the playoff. Like, that is a pure elimination game at this point. How about Arizona State out of the Big 12? Like, they win. They're in to the Big 12 championship game. Brett McMurphy has them projected to be his Big 12 champion. Crazy to think how things have changed so drastically as of late. So absolutely crazy weekend of college football. There is simply no doubt about it. That Alabama game, though, I heard Greg McElroy talking about it. And of course, he was an Alabama quarterback. He said he's never seen a team so reliant on QB play. If Jalen Milroe can't get going, they are a shell of themselves. And he was bottled up in the run game. Oklahoma was able to turn around and run extremely efficiently against Alabama. Did you see the Ryan Williams play? The SEC officiating covered up the late flag. Bad. The ref threw it after he caught the amazing touchdown. Bad. Like, what are your thoughts on that? That is inexcusable, Jake Fromm.
It has no effect on the outcome of that play whatsoever. One, it's a kind of a BS kind of call.
It's the wrong call, right? Because he was not covered up.
They got him for engaging blocking downfield.
No, they got him for illegal touching. They said he was on the line of scrimmage and he was covered up by the outside receiver on the line of scrimmage, but the outside receiver was very clearly off the line of scrimmage. It was insane. They threw it after he caught the touchdown pass. If you're lined up illegal, that's illegal formation, right? And that flag comes out immediately. I don't know if it's
on the snap.
Foul. On the snap.
And I tell you why I know that, because 2 years ago, I'm with the Washington Commanders. We played the New York Giants on Sunday Night Football. We're going down to score. We're inside the 5. Terry McLaurin looks over to the official and asks, hey, I'm on. Am I good? Referee gives a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Terry was a little farther back, but the guy gave the thumbs up. All good there.
Yeah. You just check. You always see receivers look over to the line judge because they want to make sure that they're telling him I'm on or I'm off the line of scrimmage.
Terry says I'm on. He gets the thumbs up from the ref, and as soon as the ball is snapped, the ref throws the flag. Unbelievable. And it really it has no effect on the outcome of the play whatsoever. Now, should you get it right? Yes. But it has no effect on the outcome of the play whatsoever.
So tell our listeners what the actual rule is as far as what being covered up means, or how many people can be on the line of scrimmage outside the formation.
Yeah, so in college and the NFL, you got to have 7. Now in college, you get a lot more liberty. You can have 2 guys on the same side. In the NFL, you got to have 1 on each side of the offensive lineman now. But in college, you'll see a lot of teams, they'll kind of do these unbalanced formations to get some better run numbers in the box, and they'll have 2 receivers on. And when you do that, the most inside receiver on is what they would call, quote unquote, covered up. So he's not eligible to go downfield and catch a ball past the line of scrimmage, or maybe even a downfield throw. He can catch a ball now if it's a backwards lateral, which you can kind of get in some trickery there. But that's how the defense knows, hey, I don't have to cover this guy.
Right.
Now, I can get blocked by this guy all day long, but I don't have to cover this guy because he cannot go downfield and cover route. So just a little snippet.
So it's trips right. Ryan Williams is in the slot. He's the second receiver in that formation. There's 1 inside him. There's 1 outside of him. Both of those receivers are clearly off the line of scrimmage. Ryan Williams is on the line of scrimmage. So the ball is snapped. He runs, one of his essential fade routes. And Milroe threw him an absolute dime. He makes a crazy catch.
Unbelievable catch.
And as soon as he caught the ball, you see the ref 40 yards away on the line of scrimmage, like reach into his pocket and throw a flag. And it said illegal touching. He was covered up. Even on the broadcast, Fowler and Herbstreit are like, I don't know. Then they bring in the rules analyst, and the guy's like, I'm perplexed, have no idea what the guy saw. So it negated the penalty. Negated the touchdown. Alabama would have been down 14 then with 14 minutes left to go in the game. And of course, who knows what could have happened at that point. But
the only reasonable explanation that I can think of in my head is that the most outside receiver, not Ryan Williams, looked at the referee and said, I'm on for whatever reason, and was clearly off.
Just
and Ryan
maybe out of habit.
That's the only explanation. And the ref's like, what? This don't make any sense. And threw it, even though, in my opinion, he should not have done so.
Yeah, that it's inexcusable. And I got some mixed feedback on social media. I believe on the broadcast, they said it was the same officiating crew as that Georgia-Texas game. Some people said it wasn't the same head official, but the same officiating crew was on that Alabama-Oklahoma game with one of the most egregious, poorly called penalties in recent memory. I mean, these guys are terrible. We all know that, as evidenced by what they did in the Georgia-Texas game, and they're still just trotting out there every week. I'm sure they had a great dinner on Friday night somewhere in Norman.
I'm sure they did too. I was scrolling through X, and Ben Watson had a funny tweet. He's like, man, those Alabama fans there at Oklahoma, they didn't throw enough beer cans out on the field to get the call reversed. So he had jokes there. So that was
absolutely crazy. And then the Auburn game, Auburn wins in quadruple overtime, 43-41. The fans stormed the field. They beat Texas A&M. You just knew it. You just knew it going into this game. I was like, Auburn's only a 2.5-point dog. Texas A&M's playing great. They've won way more games. Auburn's 1-5 in the conference. You just knew something crazy was going to happen in Jordan Hare at night. Nick Saban called it. We were all over it as well. So Auburn gets a huge win to get their second conference win. And they're looking to play spoiler again this week in the Iron Bowl against Alabama. Quickly, I think Quinn Ewers is getting an MRI on his ankle. Yeah. So maybe not 100%. I'm sure he'll play in this game coming up this weekend against Texas A&M.
Well, they also have the best backup in the country too, in Arch Manning. So how much Quinn plays, and he may be on a short leash because of that. We saw, Quinn Ewers have a short leash in the Georgia-Texas game, which when he got pulled quickly, in my opinion, it was kind of a panic deal. But hey, we'll see how this whole thing plays out. And I know Arch will be ready, and I think whoever is throwing the ball for them they're a great football team, and they're going to be tough to beat regardless.
Those teams haven't played in 13 years, and it is for a SEC championship berth. So that will be
It's a big one.
A super live atmosphere. I think game day is going to be there. Of course, it's the Saturday after Thanksgiving, so those fans will be rocking and rolling. When it comes to these games, and of course, we'll touch on this. We're going to drop one more episode later on this week. Maybe it's Wednesday, maybe it's Thursday when you're driving around or hanging around with the family, get you ready for the games weekend, this weekend's games. But these rivalry games, you mentioned South Carolina, Clemson. I mean, that's a huge game with like real college football playoff implications. And then, of course, Georgia Tech on Friday night. You got the Iron Bowl. You got Tennessee Vanderbilt. You got Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Like these games, Jake, are so ingrained in the culture. I've said it a million times on this podcast. I got 3 brothers-in-law that went to Georgia Tech. I grew up in Atlanta. Can't stand Georgia Tech. Like that is a huge game. By far, number 1 rivalry for me. Iron Bowl. That explains itself. It's just going to be really, really, it's going to have a little extra oomph with how many college football playoff implications are out there.
Yeah, with all these different fringe teams of who could possibly slip in, slip out, with these conference championships, getting an automatic berth. This is a big deal, and I think all of us will be watching. It's going to be fun to see it all kind of come together.
Yes, it will. We will definitely break all that down for you inside the 5. When we drop our Thanksgiving podcast later on this week, we're going to break down, of course, the next rendition of the college football playoff rankings where who the hell knows what's going to happen, but it surely will be entertaining. There's no doubt. We only have one regular season week left. Then it's conference championship weekend. Then it's selection Sunday. And this thing will be set in stone, getting ready for 4 to 5 more weeks of championship college football, which of course we love right here. Appreciate you tuning in to this episode of Punt and Pass. We just had to recap the chaos. I told Jake, I was like, we're freestyling this one, dude.
That's right.
Because it was wild. We need to have some great reaction to what went down over the weekend. Be sure to follow us on social media. We're at Punt and Pass on X and Instagram. Check us out on YouTube as well. Our producer, Spencer, has been putting up some great stuff over on our YouTube channel, so feel free to subscribe and make sure that you head on over to Solomon Brothers this holiday season for all your jewelry and diamond and accessory needs. This episode of Punt and Pass presented to you by Solomon Brothers. When you're in store at any of their 3 awesome locations, which have the best in-store experience in Atlanta and top-notch employees who are going to make sure you get what you need, just tell them Punt and Pass sent you. You can get 20% off your jewelry purchase when you are on location. Jake, Lions hosting the Chicago Bears Thanksgiving Day. We'll talk to you one more time before then, but that's pretty awesome, man. That's fun stuff.
Yeah, I'm super pumped about this one. Always remember watching these games as a kid, spending time at grandma's.
Did you do Thanksgiving last year with the Commanders?
Yeah, we did. We played Dallas.
That's right.
And that was a good game until halftime, and then it got out of hand rather quickly. So, man, playing on Thanksgiving, huge deal, big honor. And it's so much fun. Nothing like it.
And then I got a great Instagram message from one of my favorite people. You get to meet so many great people, call them quote unquote behind the scenes in the NFL. Brett Fisher, my man Fish. He's the best. Dude. He texted me. He was like, I love your boy Frommy. I go, Jake's the best. So Brett Fisher, for everybody, he is an absolute legend in the sports physical training game. He created the ab dolly. Did you know that? Has he ever told you that?
I did not know that.
Do you know what the ab dolly is?
Like the ab
dolly. Yes, like the ab dolly is like a dolly, right? If you're listening, you probably know what this is. There's old infomercials on it. It's like kind of that round circular board on the wheels.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude, that's Fish. Yeah.
No way.
He has the patent on that. Yes, go tell him tomorrow.
I gotta bust him about that tomorrow.
Be like, hey, Butler told me you're the guy behind the ab dolly. He'll get a good kick out of that because he is.
That's awesome. He loves you, Drew Butler, as well. Speaks very highly of you. And then he rates he rates the pod, man. Like if I don't bring it and I don't give my best, he lets me know. So just a little bit of extra added pressure to make sure I give you guys the best college football stuff I can give you.
He is just absolutely top notch. So tell him I said happy Thanksgiving and be sure to ask him about the ab dolly. That is the best.
You.
All right. Appreciate you tuning in. Check us out on YouTube. Again, rate, review, and subscribe, and we will talk to you on Thursday. See ya.
Yep.